here's a little breakdown of just week to week what we did. And that first week, we really came together just picking out our strengths and what we could do moving forward. The second week is when we did all of that market research. We did some deep internet diving. Some of us like reached out to just people we knew in that target audience. For the third week, we all brainstormed ideas. This was a lot of work because some of our ideas were better than others. We went over it and over it. And then we also got really familiar with sports playtests to make sure we could create just a really good survey that these kids would want to take. And then that fourth week, we finalized our survey findings and made sure our emails were professional. And this is really when our mentors came in to make sure those emails were something we were proud to send out. And that final week is when we found those opportunities from the surveys and identified them and came up with ideas that we wanted to show you guys.
Yeah, so to give you a little bit of a background on our research ideas, our research methods. So initially, before we started, formulating survey questions, we wanted to do some kind of baseline research, which really just included a lot of, Google searches on what, based on what we thought kids today would be interested in, and, also our own personal experiences with, being former youth athletes and with, young people in our lives today. And so we did this, like I said, on the internet and trying to find these popular influences throughout social media. And what that led to us doing was creating two surveys, one for more of an elementary school age group, ideally 7 to 10 years old, and then one to be shared for the middle and high school age groups, 11 to 14, 15, 18 plus. Based on the idea that, we kind of believe that these two groups would have different interests, different influences, and have exposure to different types of things. So our goal was to try to isolate those two things within the survey and find ways that we could manipulate that data.
So here's our breakdown of our demographics. From reaching out to our club coaches back in high school to reaching out to teachers we knew, we just kind of had to reach out to everybody who we thought would have that target audience again. We got a total of 75 participants who took the survey for us. And the majority of those people, 45, were in that 11 to 14 age group, our middle school age group. And we also had a majority being female. We got a pretty good representation, which we were proud of, covering the country, but we did have a little bit bigger pool coming from the Midwest. And again, in that elementary school age group, 7 to 10, we didn't receive as many responses as we really wanted to. We think this is because just kids that age don't really have their own emails, and it's a little bit harder to reach them without directly reaching the parents too. We also felt that it wasn't extremely important as their parents still have a heavy influence on them. And from the few responses we got, it wouldn't be accurate enough to create like ideas out of it.
Yeah, so in some of our initial general survey findings at first glance, we asked a lot of questions based on social media, based on their influences in pop culture and sports as well, and based on the people in their lives and what they try to do and how they try to, and how are they influenced and how do they influence those specific relationships. And so just some of our general findings, we found that our participants lean towards characters or specific athletes, I should say, more so than cheering for teams, with Simone Biles and Steph Curry being the most popular athletes that we found in our survey. We also found that superhero movies were the favorite genre of movie, and this kind of echoed throughout some of our TV shows. There's not a picture here to show that, but the TV shows, the Marvel TV shows, were the most popular as well. All of our participants in each age group really had they had a very significant presence on social media, within social media platforms. This is a very big part of their lives, most likely because it's the best way for them to keep in touch with their friends, to share ideas, to share things with their friends that they see that they find interesting. And as well, of course, they're incredibly influenced and motivated by their families, and these relationships were very important to them.
So here's some of our interesting findings that we took away. It was really interesting to us that 44.1% consider themselves their biggest influences. This is really important just because this is how kids motivate and drive themselves. 47.7% preferred casual fashion over all else, which is almost half of the kids who would have picked casual or comfort over trends. When we asked kids how they would describe themselves, they were allowed to pick as many options as they wanted, but the kids picked kind, smart, and determined as their top 3. This is pretty interesting to us again, just because this is how kids view themselves. And at the very end, we have outgoing and bold, and this is the least way kids see themselves, which was also surprising to us just because this was against what we assumed going in before the kids took the survey.
And some more takeaways of note from that middle and high school age group. Like we just stated, 44% of the participants stated that themselves or personal reasons were their biggest motivation for sports, but parents and family as well as friends were also fairly popular answers. And this quote that we received, we did allow an open comment section within this question. And this quote we received, I think, really sums up how these athletes are influenced in all phases of their life. I believe it was a young gymnast responded saying, all three, because I encourage myself, but without my friends and family on the bad days, I'm not sure I would still be into gymnastics. And I think as we get later into the presentation, we get to talk about those characteristics a little bit more. I think you'll be able to see why these influences are so prevalent within their lives and why these people around them are likely the biggest influences for them.
So from the opportunity space that we saw after the kids took those surveys, one huge area was connection. Some findings, again, just narrowing down into that middle school age group, because that's where most of our findings were from. 75% of respondents said that their friends influenced them, but they also influenced their friends. We saw that 71% of respondents said that they share stuff with their friends through social media the most, and 73% of respondents said that the social aspect of sports is really important to them. It's really what makes the sport fun for them, but it's not the motivation and the only thing that matters, because again, we also saw that they were their own personal influence. And some inferences that we could take away based off of those findings were that social media was, again, this just really deep connection relationship builder for those kids. And we think that this may be a product of COVID, just because those kids didn't get to have personal interactions with each other. So they really had to learn how to make those deep connections with each other through electronic devices. We also saw that relationships are just the backbone of how sports are played, and it's so important to them again. And we saw that the opinions and experiences of their friends really shape this middle school age group more than any age group we saw. So here's our first persona that we created. This is Austin Parker. He's more of our wallflower, if you will, a little bit more reserved and shy. He's age 12, again in that middle school age group. He's in 7th grade from the West Coast. He plays a club sport, and he's really interested in YouTube and video games. He spends a lot of his time just spending and talking to his friends over video games, and he also gets a little bit of that time through his club sport. He would describe himself as smart and independent, but he also doesn't really have as much influence from outside people like some other kids said they did. He also has a closer but smaller friend group, and he gets a lot of his energy from alone time. So here are the possible opportunities, just going back and prefacing that these kids were able to build personal relationships both in person and online, and that YouTube is so popular amongst this age group, and how it's really where they get a lot of their information and share and use that media platform for the diverse aspect of it. So products that we think could help were reflecting support and just really projecting the sharing aspect. So some marketing techniques, we saw that advertising on YouTube would be really helpful, just again, because a lot of kids use it. You get to reach a lot of that target audience. And incorporating basketball influencers. This was interesting because we saw that basketball was a huge trendsetter and influencer on all kids across all sports, or even outside of sports. A lot of kids, when we asked them in the survey who their biggest influence was, again, Steph Curry was picked a lot from kids who weren't even playing basketball. Some community opportunities or ideas that we came up with were kind of a contest sort, and it would be kind of like equipment or design or any apparel where these kids would be in charge of creating it, while also having a sharing and judging aspect to it across social media platforms. Our second idea would be an app, almost like Discord, where the kids would be able to chat with each other about sports and share those videos. and photos, because a lot of these kids are really proud of their sport and it would be a really good way to share it. But because these kids are in middle school age group, we want to make sure that there's moderators just looking after them.
And so for our second opportunity space, we're going to be talking once again about those characteristics that we felt like our respondents were the most aligned with. And so once again, our findings note, like we stated like we showed on previous data slides before, kind, smart, determined were the most common characteristics, with 2/3 of our respondents choosing at least one of the three, with kind, as we saw before, being the characteristic of choice, if you will. And so some of the inferences we've made based on these character findings was this could explain why so many of our participants were interested in superhero movies and were more interested in individual athletes over teams. Like I said, 72% chose the Avengers as their favorite movie. And like I said, participants placed a very serious emphasis on connecting with their families, friends, and teammates. There was a lot of, in the open-ended questions that we asked where participants could respond. A lot of them really did, like that one girl, really explained the benefit of having their families and their friends be participants in their sports and their athletic lives. And I think these characteristics are a big reason why. And so for our persona, this is Katie Moore. She's more of the social butterfly. So she's a freshman from the Midwest, 15 years old, who plays school soccer. She's very active on social media platforms, as are many kids this age. She's more of a big dreamer, and her traits is kind of determined, really allow her to spend a lot of her time on social media. And that really kind of, as a social butterfly, she's always able to connect with her friends. And she's, once again, because she's always connecting with her friends online on these social media platforms, that opens up a lot of opportunities and spaces for advertising, for other influences to be made through the media, which will trickle down through her friends and family. And so some of these personality opportunities that we find, once again, like we said, kind of determined being the most important, we wanted to try to think about products that would really allow these people to not only express themselves, but express themselves with their peers, with their friends, and give themselves something that their families would be proud of. And some products that can include that would be some things that would showcase their modern day heroes, or these modern day characteristics that we find in these heroes. Something, clothing is probably the big one that we talked about here. Clothing that would show maybe like a Marvel character or a DC comic character, or a sentence or a quote from one of their favorite athletes, something that allow them to express what they feel representing that particular athlete. And once again, these products will allow these young athletes to not only get more in touch with their individual self, but to be part of something with their peers and to share an identity with their peers that they find from the things that influence them. And some of the marketing ways we could do this, we felt that commercials nowadays, advertising commercials are all over, especially we've talked about the role that YouTube plays and how YouTube is actually our most common social media platform if it qualifies. And it's very hard to watch a YouTube video without seeing an advertisement. And so that's why I think the commercial space would be very prevalent place to advertise. And if you could, find a way to advertise some of those specific products while highlighting those characteristics, that would just be a next step in making those products a realization for the customers. And finally, within the community, because these kids are kind, these kids want to show and use their resources to better not only themselves, but the world around them. We kind of came up with an idea where kids and their teammates could have the option to donate an additional Wilson product to less resourced customers. An example, so let's say a club soccer team is ordering their soccer balls for the season. They order 10 soccer balls. What they could do is they could have the opportunity as a team to send 10 soccer balls to less resourced customers, to less resourced programs, to really allow themselves to not only use those traits, but to use sport as a way to connect them, as a way to build up the community around them.
Okay, so here are project takeaways. Just going through the project, I think some of our hardships, you could call them, were when we almost thought that the project was just going to be smooth sailing. We were just going to have to wait on all these responses and get time to work on our resumes with our mentors and stuff. But again, we had to keep calling back and keep emailing back and try and figure out a way to reach all these people. So I think some experiences we took away from that were, one, being able to create a professional email. And again, our mentors were really helpful here, just making sure, going over, it was something we were really proud of sending out. But we also learned how to professionally send out surveys. And I think it was important because we sent stuff out to people who we were pretty close with and familiar with, but we also had to reach people that we also weren't as familiar with and make sure that that is more professional and is something that we want to make ourselves look good. Also learning how to resend that and not make it sound too pushy, but also making sure that these people take our survey.
Absolutely. And then those are some of the great skills that we learned. And just to be a little bit more specific, we obviously got to learn a little bit more about the marketing process and how we can really try to engage our consumers. And obviously with this consumer insights project, we were focused more towards youth consumers, a group that we're not a part of anymore. So that forced us, like Megan talked about, is to really spend a lot of time designing these questions, thinking about these questions, thinking about, how would a 10-year-old approach this survey, trying to put ourselves in their shoes, to see if we could ask questions to get the answers that we needed. And of course, being interns, we got to experience what it's like to be in a work environment. We had weekly meetings and check-ins, fairly constant communication with our mentors, and they were always quick to respond. So, obviously the Zoom part is not ideal, but I think it replicated what a current work environment looked like. And I think that experience was great for us.
Okay, and lastly, we just want to say big thank you to Wilson and Game Changers for giving us this opportunity to work on this project, giving us a lot of professional experience.
Absolutely. Thank you. Once again, also thank you to our two mentors, Molly and Emma, for helping us out with these projects and helping us, gain some professional experience as well.
Okay, any
All right.
questions?
Oh.
And
Yes,
questions, of course.
We want to open it up. Please, please ask questions to these fantastic game changers. Yeah, Emma, come. She had to put the glasses on. Come on with the question.
Thought I'd show my face.
Okay, Kevin, did you have a question?
Sort of.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I was having connection. Great job, obviously, first of all. And I'm not being a smart guy, but if you had to do this again, like I missed a few of the first slides, but I caught a lot about that younger demographic and being focused on YouTube and everything. And then at the end, you talked about how hard it was to get engagement. If you were doing this over, knowing what you know now, would you try to figure out a way to survey on YouTube, or would you, is there a way to approach? Are we missing consumer insights by not diving into YouTube more? And my team can tell me if we're there more than I think we are. So.
Yeah, I'll start. I think certainly, for what we were looking for, fortunately at Emma was able to find most of our contacts and get our participants. But I think for larger scale projects and things that you guys want to explore within the marketplace, I think, surveys, there's a way to poll, I think on Twitter. I think polls on Twitter are a fairly common thing now. You can do them as well. I think on YouTube, I think Google does them a lot. Before you watch a YouTube video, those little polls pop up at the top of the screen. And I certainly think that's a way to get a ton of responses. We were able to get 75. I couldn't tell you how many responses I would expect from, if you had an advertisement for a popular influencer's video, or you had an advertisement, under, basketball highlights. I feel like there's a ton of response and a ton of information you can gather from surveying on those social media sites.
Cool. The other thing I'll just comment, you guys did a great job presenting. You can tell that you practice it, and the handoffs and everything was transitions was really good, and you can tell you worked hard on that. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Questions?
I have a question, if you don't mind. Hey, Green.
Oh, hey, go ahead.
Sorry. So my camera doesn't work, so I apologize. But I did want to ask, I know that you mentioned first of all, congratulations, you all did an excellent job. Kudos to you, and ditto what Kevin had mentioned. But you had mentioned in the first few slides, the demographic that you were able to get the most feedback from. But then you also mentioned that the younger demographic, oftentimes parents are the ones that are purchasing these items for their student athletes, and they don't have access and such. Do you feel it valuable for Wilson team to maybe dive deeper into data from that population, from parents of youth who may be selecting gear and items for their younger student athletes?
Yeah, definitely. I think we just assumed that reaching out to that exact target audience would have been the way to go. But I think learning from this project, you're exactly right. When it's the parents that we need to find that audience who have those kids to answer those questions for us, who could give us that way better, way deeper insight. And I also think there's a heavy like security part of it involved, of parents not really wanting their kids to fully answer all of those questions or just take a random survey without them knowing.
I would also say a lot of these kids are probably a little bit younger to the age where they're probably not quite as serious in sports yet. So accessing them, like most of our participants were part of teams. I don't think I was part of a formal team until I was in middle school. And I think that's another issue we found, is that it's just difficult to access because a lot of these athletes, they're either playing, rec sports, or they're just they haven't really began to experiment yet. And so like Megan talked about, a lot of this stuff comes from the parents. And I think that like our findings that, the relationships with parents, although it wasn't from that specific age group, but the relationship these kids have with their parents is incredibly important. And as they are a bit younger, they're more likely to be influenced by their parents. And I think that that's a space that could really be, where Wilson could make a difference, because, it's a lot of the sports, how do I say this? A lot of the sports relationship is driven by the parents at that point, until the kid can really make their own decisions about what they want to play and how often and how serious and those types of things.
Excellent interpretation, Jonathan. I appreciate that. I'm a parent of a couple young kids, right? 7 and 8, well, 6 and 8. And I'm buying all their stuff, and they don't really have a preference right now. It doesn't really matter what they're using right now. So I think that would be some really useful information from Wilson. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Juan, Derek, you guys got a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that was really insightful and helpful. So yeah, you both did a great job. As someone who oversees the Wilson social accounts, I thought it was neat what you guys hit on in regards to the way basketball has an influence on really the everyday athlete in general, whether they play basketball or not, just that type of influence that has. And I think we've seen a lot of synergies in that regard too. So based off of your findings and research, it was neat to hear that. Kind of helps validate what we're trying to show and prove as well, I think, across the board. So thank you for that. And I thought it was neat too with what you guys hit on about Steph and apologies, the other names slipping my head, but the individuals who are having like the influence to the youth athletes, or to the aspiring athlete, or to individuals that play sports in general. So great work. And I thought that was super, super helpful for what we're embarking on in this next journey as well, across our social platforms and our target audience.
Hey, I want to add to that. You mentioned about Steph. The one thing that surprised me was at Wilson, we get caught up in our silos all the time. So in our world, the baseball group would be very surprised to hear that Steph is an influencer across all sports categories, not just basketball. Or we might not be apt to think that way, or to think that there's a critical mass there. So I thought it's probably not surprising, but it's interesting, and it's a good reminder that we don't probably tap into those uber influencers enough that can cross a lot of opportunity categories.
Yeah, I just kind of want to add, it seems like just from being on social media and you follow these pages like Bleacher Report, House of Highlights, basketball seems to be the overwhelming thing they post about. Just like the day-to-day, when the NBA season's going on, there's a highlight every day that kind of makes your jaw drop. And I think that's really where this popularity has kind of come from. Basketball's been a big winner of the social media revolution. Like I said, I think within our survey, and like Derek had kind of talked about, we were able to see that.
Derek, our game changers have made your job easy, providing good feedback the last couple weeks.
Oh yeah, and Vaughn and Malani, as you'll see soon, they made it a whole lot easier too. So I appreciate them.
I love it. Now, Dewan, you got to ask a question now. You've been waiting patiently.
Megan, Jonathan, great job. I'm sorry I missed the first couple of slides because I had somebody in my office, and you might have answered this if you have. Sorry about that. And also I have dual monitors, which is interesting. But were you able to figure out with the demographic that you were targeting what their perspective of Wilson was, whether that's as a brand, as equipment, et cetera? Because I would imagine, I remember when I was in middle school, I didn't really pay attention to the type of ball I used, but I paid attention to the type of cleats and shirts I was wearing, right? And so I'm thinking, what was kind of the insights that you found as far as what they believe to be or know about Wilson even at that age?
Yeah, we actually had a question on our survey that was about recognition. We put a ton of photos of different brands, and unfortunately, nobody recognized Wilson. A lot of these kids were more involved with Nike brands, and from like that middle school age group to high school, I think we had maybe one or two who even recognize it. That being said, we didn't get not every single person who took our survey was in sports. We did have a couple of people who weren't, but it was surprising to us that it wasn't as recognizable.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit on it, and like with your question saying that, like, we all use, like, I think all these athletes probably, especially if they played, a team sport, with a ball of some sort, that like Wilson, you guys, I feel like your space is more, in team oriented. You guys make products for like I have a set of Wilson golf clubs, but I don't think I've ever seen a pair of like Wilson tennis shoes or like, Wilson t-shirts. And I think that's probably why, especially at that young age, that where like Nike really dominates the apparel in that area. And so that was kind of what we saw the most of. And like kind of based on what like my preconceived notion of what Wilson was trying to get done in I guess like more overall within the company, it was like I said, focus more on those large team contracts, making really good footballs, making good soccer balls, in the golf sphere, making good equipment there, tennis, baseball, of course. And so I think, and I don't think we interviewed any baseball players or anybody that would use like a more individualized Wilson product. So I think that's probably why that is.
I get you. I really like the piece at the end that you talked about how you can, I guess more so donate to a lesser resource consumer and kind of running that through a team or a club level, because I think that would be something that would be really good. And yeah, I like that piece, but thanks for answering my question.
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely chose that. Again, just tying back to that kindness. We were so surprised that kids chose that as their first piece. Just, I think when we first did research or when we talked to each other about it, we were kind of expecting more bold, more outgoing, just because most athletes would kind of see themselves as that. But to see them describe themselves as kind, and just we wanted to represent that. If that's really how they felt, we thought that was an important way to represent how they really did feel.
That's a good sign for our future. I want to bring up your mentors. Thank you, Dewan. Derek, did you have any additional questions? Awesome.
Nope.
I want to bring Emma and Molly on the stage. They were Megan and Jonathan. Look at, boom, I like that transition. Boom, all day. Molly, you stay with good lighting. I love it. And I just want you guys to share a little bit about your experience with Megan and Jonathan and anything that you were able to learn along the way.
Gosh, I just feel so lucky to have gotten to work with Megan and Jonathan. It was just a really fun group. We got to talk to them a lot. I got a little bit more insight to being a student athlete at the college level. I was never the typical student athlete. So it was really exciting and so impressive to see how they can manage their studies, their athletics, as well as this internship. In the last couple of weeks, we met multiple times a week. They were always accommodating. They could, make room in their schedules just as well as we were. I'm so impressed with them. I really hope we keep in touch, and I can't wait to see the big things that they're going to do in the future.
Thank you.
It was amazing to work with them. It was a really fun collaborative experience. From my perspective, doing a lot of insights on our actual products and coming up with strategies and who we should market to and how we should design product. It was really interesting to work on this process with, people of different age demographic and understanding how we both view a data point. So my favorite part was that we'd have a completely different takeaway from the actual data we were receiving. And so it was really great to be able to have those conversations and figure out different ways that we could see it, what sort of assumptions we were making, especially when it comes to like the kind of determined, you can definitely see how that's reflecting in society and politics and fashion and sports. So it was really cool to have those conversations, and there was a lot of great insight there. And for me especially, I'm excited because I get to hopefully this and bring it into our products, and we have Megan and Jonathan to thank for that. So very appreciative of you guys, and please definitely keep in touch, because we still do want to go over your resumes and everything like that.
Well, I appreciate, we're gonna do a quick picture on the count of 3. So give me your best smiles. It's going on the gram and all the things. So 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you all. I am going to share my screen. Thank you, Megan, Jonathan. You did a great job. The only feedback I'm going to give, because I'm that person, is think about your text and how it's seen. There are a couple, and I appreciate you using our branding for that, but like it was like super bold and kind of hard to read when it was small. So just something to think about when people are reading your presentation. But I love that you didn't just read from the slide, so I kind of let it go. But overall, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that was Megan and Jonathan, and we're going to bring up Taylor and Daniel. Taylor's coming from Nebraska track and field, and Daniel from Notre Dame baseball. They're going to talk about how to measure marketing efficacy across touch points. And I'm so excited about this conversation. I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Corinne.
Okay, so today we're presenting on how we're measuring market efficacy and how our consumers react to our sponsored athletes and our branded content. My name's Taylor Johnson. I'm from San Jose, California. I run track at the University of Nebraska right now. I got my bachelor's in political science, and I'm currently getting my master's in sports industry management from Georgetown University.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Jung. I'm currently a 5th year at the University of Notre Dame on the baseball team. I did my undergrad here. I studied management consulting in the business school, and I'm now pursuing my master's in business analytics. So I'm going to go over our agenda today. We're going to start off with our project overview. Our project consisted of 3 surveys, and the 3 surveys were: 1 about the Bonded by Ball campaign, 2nd, Day One Football, a social media channel on Instagram showcasing the daily life in amateur football, and 3rd, 3 surveys about how professional athletes impact marketing decisions. And after those 3 surveys, we'll recap our recommendations we have for each of those surveys and conclude with our final thoughts and wrap up. So Taylor will go over our project overview and kick it off with our Bonded by Ball survey.
Okay, so our project overview consists of 3 points for each survey. For the Bonded by Ball survey, we're trying to figure out if the campaign resonates with the consumer. So we put a lot of visuals from that campaign into our survey. We're trying to see if it resonates with our target audience. Mainly, we're trying to stay between high school age and 44 and see how that resonates with those people. And then also if they react to the message. So there's a couple of keywords that were associated with this brand rollout, and we're just trying to see if that's accurately assessed. In the Day One Football survey, we're trying to see if the social media page is effective in conveying what they want to convey. If they need to show anything else, we're trying to figure that out. We're trying to see if it is the right content for the right audience. So if it resonates with the age group that's following the page, and then also if people recognize the Evo Shield and the Wilson ownership of the page as well. For the professional athletes, we're trying to see the consumer impact that the professional athletes have. So will a professional athlete encourage you to buy a product, what their relationship looks like with Wilson, and if they're willing to endorse or how their endorsements are increasing purchases. Bonded by Ball will be first. We'll talk through a couple of the slides and objectives. So we'll talk about if the visuals resonate. We'll talk about if the purpose is communicated well. Do people understand the message that we're trying to send? And then we'll also talk about what fans wanted to see more from basketball relationships. Okay, so first we've got a couple of demographics that we collected. We've got 50 complete responses, about 57 incomplete responses, 66% were male. There's a large representation of the West and the Midwest, and that's just basically because Daniel and I are from the West and we go to school in the Midwest. And then we have a lot of age groups recorded, but we got most of our age groups from the 17 to 24 range. And we have the 3 words that resonated most with the audience: exercise, competition, and joy in 1, 2, and 3. The brand or the audiences would like to purchase a basketball from Wilson more than Spalding, but you could see here that Spalding is probably the most competition that we'll get from other brands that make basketball. Right here we have a competition of phrases. Currently, the phrase for this campaign is Bonded by Ball, but we wanted to see if people resonated with different words that meant the same thing or similar meanings. So we put United by Ball and Connected by Ball in the running, and we had each consumer decide which one they resonated with the most. Out of 50 responses, United by Ball was the phrase that people ranked first. So you could tell the black, if it's shortest, that's the highest that it was ranked in second and third and so on. We tested these visuals just with the branded of Bonded by Ball, how to see how people wanted to see a campaign. So basically the first picture is more of a team aspect, and it's what ranked first. What ranked second was more of the lifestyle, growing up kind of nostalgia. And then third, we have women also competing. So basically the one that people chose was the one with game time action and celebration. Here we have a ranking of what people want to see more from basketball brands. 1, 2, and 3 were social justice initiatives, sustainability initiatives, and donations were basically the 3 top things that people wanted to see from basketball brands. Okay, so the insights. How do our visuals resonate with the audience? Are visuals impactful? The visuals connected with the phrases associated with basketball. The phrase that was associated with this branding was family, but that ranked 4th. So what we can tell from that is that people really see joy in competition as the higher one. And also you compare that with the team pictures that they chose and celebration. And that could be set instead of going with the younger, more familial vibe. Respondents connected with game time visuals over lifestyle content, again, with the neighborhood, the kids walking down the neighborhood, and then also game time content. The message, will it resonate? Respondents preferred the term bonded by ball over the third, out of the 3, and the consumer feels stronger connection with United by Ball. The insight that I get from that is that bonded maybe has more of a cemented attachment, whereas United is more free in connecting somebody to another thing. In communicating the purpose, will our audience purchase products based on visuals? 44% of the consumers prefer Wilson basketball to our competition. As Bonded by Ball is associated with the NBA and Wilson partners with the NBA, the gap between Wilson and Spalding will expand to a bigger percentage. And what do our fans want to see? Our fans wanted to see more professional setting, more professional sports. They also wanted to see brands associate themselves with social justice initiatives and sustainability initiatives, which shows us that people want to see their brands interact with what's going on in culture right now, and if they have something that they care about and if they support it. So basically be more charitable. And the recommendations that we have from this survey are social media focuses on game time content along with lifestyle content, but we need to incorporate more game time content because people are feeling a miss from that. And I guess that's just because we don't have a big sponsorship with any NBA athlete. Hopefully that'll change in the future. Recommend that Wilson prioritize the advertising of basketball athletes to the upcoming youth. So just game time and training content so that kids and younger athletes can see what it takes to be a professional athlete. And this will help expand the gap between Wilson and its competitors as well. And next, Daniel will do day one football in that survey.
Thanks, Taylor. So next, we're going to go over our survey we did for day one football. And the goal of the survey was to judge the content effectiveness on the day one football Instagram page. So again, we'll go over the 3 main survey objectives that we came up. The first was evident branding. And for this objective, we want to figure out whether if the Wilson and EvoShield branding on this page is evident. We also want to know if EvoShield is incorporated enough. Second, we wanted to learn about the relationship we have with our followers. And we want to know whether if our followers are more likely to purchase from us based on the content we produce. And we want to know if they have a more favorable opinion on Wilson and EvoShield. And lastly, we want to know what inspires fandom for this page. Some things that we want to figure out with this objective is that what type of content really inspires people to follow our page, and are they also do they also want something that they're currently not getting? So we'll dive in to the questions. So by the numbers for this survey, we had 137 complete responses. The region breakdown was very evenly distributed, and a majority of our respondents were from the ages 14 to 24. And one other thing we did with this survey was we wanted to break down the respondents by followers and non-followers. And our goal for this survey was to get around 80% followers and 20% non-followers. And we were able to get close to that mark with 72% of the respondents being followers. So with that, we'll go into the responses for the non-followers for this survey. So the first question we asked them was, what are your favorite football equipment brands? We wanted to know what our non-followers liked for football equipment. And ranking first was Wilson at 55%. Second was Riddell at 42. Third was Battle at 29. And fourth was EvoShield at 24. So it was good to see that Wilson was ranked number 1. And Riddell ranking second makes sense because a lot of football players have to wear some sort of Riddell equipment. And we'll dive into this more later. Next, we asked them what would make you follow day one football. And for our non-followers, the number 1 reason was giveaways, which could make a lot of sense because it's an enticing way to gain followers. But as you can see, for second and third, training content and highlights were the runner-ups. And we'll see here later why training content and high school and college highlights needs to be a priority for this page. After that, we asked them, when you think about Wilson, what sport do you think of? Our non-followers responded that 66% of them thought about football, 34% thought about tennis, and 32% thought of baseball when thinking about Wilson. Next, we asked them, what sport do you connect EvoShield to? 32% of our non-followers identify EvoShield as a football brand, which was encouraging because Day One Football is a youth amateur football account, but a majority of them have not heard of EvoShield as well, which also made a lot of sense. So with that, I'll go over our follower responses for Day One Football. And the first question we wanted to figure out was, do our followers know who owns Day One Football? And with Wilson and EvoShield being the owners, 78% of our followers said that Wilson owns Day One Football, but only 40% of our followers said that EvoShield owns it. So there's a big gap here, and there's an opportunity here that Day One Football can increase this percentage for EvoShield in the future. Next, we asked them some questions to figure out whether if our branding was evident on Day One Football. And some insights that we got were that 66% of our followers agreed that Wilson and EvoShield owns this page. 86% of our followers agreed that there should be more Wilson and EvoShield branded content. And lastly, 81% said that they're likely to purchase a Wilson or EvoShield product within the next 12 months. So what these statistics tell us is that a good majority know that Wilson and EvoShield own this page, but a lot of them want more branded content. So that tells us that if we show more branded content on this page, it's going to increase the number of people that know Wilson and EvoShield, and also increase the chances that they're going to buy a product in the future. After the next question we asked them is, we wanted to figure out what are their favorite football Instagram accounts. So in third place was Overtime and ESPN, with 50% of followers responding. In second place was Bleacher Report at 61%. And then tied for first place was Day One Football and NFL. So this was cool to see Day One at the top, but also a good insight for NFL, seeing that our followers also like the professional content, which Day One Football doesn't show, but Day One Football incorporates NFL content in the form of training content, which we'll see that's what our followers want to see more of. So the last two questions, we wanted to find out what inspires fandom. So we asked them, what made you follow Day One Football? And the number one content for our followers were training content. And to follow that up, we asked them, what do our followers want to see more of? And in this ranking, we see that training content was number one again. And in a close second place was high school and 7v7 coverage. And in third, other than giveaways, was event recaps and exposure. And here we see that our followers want to see everything that revolves around the ecosystem of the game, both in season and off season. So with that, some of the insights that we learned, one of the questions was, is a Wilson branding evident enough? We learned that the ownership is clear, but more followers want more branded content on this page, and that having more branded content can especially help EvoShield, where a majority of our non-followers and followers viewed Wilson as more of a football brand compared to EvoShield. And for the question, is EvoShield incorporated enough? As mentioned earlier, only 40% of our followers recognize EvoShield as one of the owners, and this could be an opportunity of growth. For our next insights, learning about our relationships with followers. When asked, are followers more likely to purchase from Wilson? 86% picked Day One Football as their favorite account, and 81% are likely to purchase Wilson products. So consumers are familiar with the brand. It's just more branded content could impact their decisions to purchase from Wilson. And as mentioned earlier, Wilson was number one, with Riddell at number two. And lastly, for our insights about what drives fandom, as mentioned with the last two questions, people want content that recognizes football both on and off the field. And with Day One Football having the goal of showing the day in life of an amateur football player, I think producing more in-season and off-season content is what our followers want. So with that, we have two main recommendations for the Day One team. The first is to increase the representation of EvoShield branded content to match the level of Wilson branded content on Day One Football. Because our followers and non-followers see a majority of Wilson more than EvoShield, we think that promoting more EvoShield branding content will increase the brand recognition, and it won't hurt Wilson because they're owned together. So we believe that that'll help drive revenue for purchases for EvoShield. And second, prioritizing the production of training content on day one football. That's going to help increase popularity, but also boost follower engagements. And a way to do that is to just keep promoting individual submissions from our followers to do that. So that's what we have for day one football. I'm going to go over our goal we have for a professional athlete survey. And for this survey, we just wanted to see if our professional athletes are having a positive impact on our brand. So our 3 learning objectives that we came up with the survey was to figure out our audience insight. Are we connecting with our audience? Do they know our sponsored players? And do they like the content that they produce? Secondly, we wanted to learn about the consumer relationships that we have with our professional athletes and their audience they're targeting. Are professional athletes feeding off of our consumers? Are consumers more likely to produce or purchase products based on the relationships that we have with our pro athletes? And lastly, we wanted to learn about our fan support that our consumers have for our professional athletes. Are they going to support us because of our athletes we sponsor? And do they want to see us interact with our athletes in other ways? So Taylor's going to go over our demographics for our 3 different surveys that we had.
Okay, so for the demographics, first we've got volleyball. Okay, so for volleyball, it's kind of the same with the demographics of where people are from and the regions. So mostly Midwest, mostly West. We had 73 complete responses, 67% were male, and the age range was more from 18 to 34. And for basketball, same with the regions, 139 complete responses, 62% male, but we had a bigger age range. I would say 17 to 44 would be where we reached. And for football, we've got more of the Midwest chiming in with this one, more the Northeast also. We had 139 responses, 67% male, but the age range was 17 to 24, majority. And Daniel will do the results.
So the results from the questions for all 3 of the surveys, the only question that was different from each of the surveys was that volleyball and football, we asked the question if our audience knew who our Wilson sponsored athletes were. And for volleyball and football, the top 6 responses for volleyball were all Wilson sponsored athletes. And for football, we have 3 current sponsored athletes, and our audience was able to clearly identify all of our Wilson athletes. So this tells us that they know who our Wilson sponsored athletes are. Next, we asked them, what are the most desirable traits that you look for in professional athletes? And the main takeaway for all 3 of the surveys was that on-court performance and the personality of the athlete meant the most to them, which was the same across all 3 surveys. Then we asked them, do you own a Wilson product? And for all 3 surveys, a majority of our audiences owned a volleyball, basketball, or football Wilson product, or it could have been any other general Wilson product. But when asked why they chose to buy that product, again, there was a common theme across all 3 surveys. Familiarity with the brand and product performance was 1 and 2. But another key takeaway from this question was that coming in 3rd place was professional athlete influence. And we'll talk more later on how that factors into familiarity with the brand and product performance. After that, we asked them, has a professional or Wilson athlete influence your purchasing decisions? So the question was, has a professional athlete influenced your decision to buy a product? For volleyball, 63% said yes. And when asked if a Wilson sponsored athlete has done the same, 60% said yes. So it was positive for both questions. For basketball, for a professional athlete, 55% said yes, but 71% said no, which makes sense because Wilson does not have any sponsored basketball athletes. For football, 52% said yes, but 58% said no when asked for a Wilson sponsored athlete. Next, we asked them, what type of content do you want to see from professional athletes? For all 3 surveys across the board, another common theme was found where training content and game time content were the top 2. One thing to note is that for football, game time content was higher than training content. And we can assume that that was higher because the audience for football was a little older and they might be more interested in game time content than the actual training content. So moving into our insights, Taylor will talk about our insights for the audience.
Okay, so for the insights for the audience, we kind of recognize that respondents knew that Wilson is in the top 3 of each survey. So football and basketball, they know who our sponsored athletes are. So you can tell that people pay attention to that. Do they like the content that our athletes produce? Volleyball sponsored athletes were the ones to increase purchases among consumers. So we could see that volleyball athletes play a bigger role in affecting the purchases of the consumer. But for football and basketball, audience didn't see as much off the field or off the court content like volleyball did. So therefore, it factors into a lower chance of purchasing Wilson products. We can kind of see that the less use of a Wilson product means the less purchase.
So moving into our insights about consumer relationships, will fans buy more from Wilson because of our relationship with our athletes? We learned that yes, the top reasons why consumers choose to buy Wilson products was familiarity with the brand and product performance. But as we saw that pro athlete influence was 3rd place in that question, we believe that it plays a role in these purchases because identifying a pro athlete could mean that you're familiar with the brand because of that athlete. And pro athletes are, for some people, product testers at the highest level. And a lot of consumers are able to judge product performance based on how professional athletes are using it at the highest level. And secondly, do our athletes make it known that they are sponsored by Wilson? For football athletes and basketball, majority said no. For basketball, we understand that they don't currently sponsor any basketball athletes. This could change in the future. But for football, they did not influence them to buy a Wilson product. And we'll see in our recommendations on how we could potentially make our consumers be impacted more by our football athletes.
Okay, so for the insights that we learned from fan support, will consumers support us because of an athlete we sponsor? Yes, because professional athletes have a powerful reputation, a large following, and a face that's recognizable and a reliable opinion. So people listen to people that have made it to the highest level of what they're doing, and they're going to be more likely to listen to a professional athlete suggestion to buy a product. What content do fans want to see with Wilson sponsored athletes? Like we mentioned before, they want to see on-court, on-field, and product endorsing content. That just means maybe an Instagram post of an athlete talking about a product or endorsing a product on their Instagram or their social media feeds.
So with that, we came up with one main recommendation for the professional athlete survey, and that was to engage in more on-field and on-court product advertisement with Wilson football and future basketball athletes.
And to talk a little bit more about that, result in greater rate of Wilson and athletes influencing purchasing decisions. So if we engage more with the athletes and probably just like say or tell them what we want to see from them in their posts, it would increase the purchases from the people seeing their posts. And incentivizing athletes more to promote Wilson on personal social pages will increase engagement on products. So what can we do to better sponsorship deals? What can we do to ensure that we are getting our brand to be represented the way that we need to in sponsorships? Just to note, it may have something to do with contract. If that's a thing, if people want to see more from their sponsored athletes, maybe it just needs to be communicated or enforced in the contract period of a sponsorship.
So with that, we wanted to recap all of our recommendations once again.
Okay, so we've got social media that focuses on game time content for Bonded by Ball, and that we would like the prioritization of the advertising future with Wilson basketball athletes to the upcoming youth. So just maybe more of a connection with the younger aged audience. And then for day one football, we recommended that Wilson would increase the representation of the Evo Shield brand content, just so that it brings it closer to the Wilson content that's already being represented, so that that percentage would grow in seeing people recognize the Evo Shield brand. And then that we prioritize production of training content. So maybe have your followers put more or submit more training content, and you can put that as a giveaway. Say if you submit your training highlights, there's a chance that you could be featured on our page, and that would incentivize younger athletes to do that, and you wouldn't have to send your social media team miles and miles away to get content. The content could come to you. And for the professional athletes, we recommended that Wilson engage more on the field, on the court product, more game time content, and that advertisement with Wilson football and future football athletes would increase.
So that's all we have for our surveys, and we wanted to wrap it up with our final thoughts. So for me personally, reflecting on the past 6 weeks, this has been an incredible opportunity. For me personally, it's been my first experience with an internship and work experience, and I couldn't have asked for a better team, a better partner to work with. And I'm grateful for the Winning Edge leadership, and also the Wilson team, and also the mentors just guiding us and also showing tremendous leadership. And I was able to learn a lot of new skills about marketing, and I'll just be forever grateful for this opportunity.
He kind of summed it up. Daniel summed it up. I loved working with him. A great 50-50 partnership, I thought. I loved our team. I learned a lot about surveys and creating surveys and dealing with people and making sure that you can set up meetings whenever you have questions, not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to say that you don't know something, or not being afraid to ask about somebody's insight or what they would recommend. So it's definitely a humbling experience, but in a positive way for sure.
So another learning opportunity, Taylor mentioned about just receiving constructive criticism and being able to apply that quickly. Another thing that we learned was being able to create, distribute, and analyze surveys from the ground up. As a previous group mentioned, we thought it was going to be smooth sailing, but creating a survey from the ground up is a challenge on its own, and distributing and analyzing it is also their own unique challenges. So doing that for the first time was a great experience. And Taylor will talk about some next steps that we would do in the future.
Yes, so the one thing that we collectively would change or improve upon if we were to do this again is probably have the Bonded by Ball survey given to different outlets and for a longer period of time, so that we could get more than 50 responses, because with 50 responses, it doesn't really tell you to change something. It's not served as fact because it's such a low number of responses. So what we would do in the future is we would probably make our own separate post about the survey on the feed instead of on a story. But then also I think we would put it on maybe Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, just broaden our horizons that we were going to distribute this survey to. But other than that, we wouldn't have anything different. We wanted to say a thank you to our mentors, Blake, Marie, and Joe. We love them. And I really had a lot of fun with all of our meetings and the jokes and everything. So that was great. We want to thank the Winning Edge leadership for, putting this opportunity in front of our faces. And we want to thank Wilson leadership also for partnering with the Winning Edge and allowing us to be able to do this. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any questions? We are good on time, so don't feel like you can't ask no questions. I want Taylor and Daniel to feel like we're gonna challenge them with some of these questions. I'll start with the first question. Did you feel like you had enough respondents for your surveys?
Yes, so we feel that for a professional athlete survey, we had 3 unique surveys, but they were basically the same survey, and we were able to get around 300 responses for that one. For day 1 football, we were able to get around 140, which we thought was a good amount. Maybe if we got around the 200, 300 range for that survey, it would have been more accurate in terms of the insights that we got. As Taylor mentioned, for Bonded by Ball, we only got 50 for that survey. So in terms of response count, if we can do it again, having more time to distribute that survey, I think would help gain more accurate insights about a bigger campaign like Bonded by Ball.
Got it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is there anything you guys would do differently when it comes to sending out the surveys that you think might provide a more efficiency for when you're getting the responses for the surveys and make them easier for both the people who are taking the surveys and you guys who are giving out the surveys to complete?
Yeah, I think that we could have used more platforms, but also I wish we could have used a tool to kind of weed out some responses and just put more responses. It sounds weird, but put more responses in a pool, and kind of put together what does the total survey taker mean? What age, what region, what gender, and what does it say about them completely? I would have liked to look more into the complete survey taker and what that means about them, instead of just putting men and region and age separately.
Malani, to add on to your question, I think one of the biggest things that we learned is that thinking about distribution plans for the survey is equally as important as creating your survey, analyzing your survey. So we really learned that there's not one part in this process that is worth more than the other. I think that focusing more on a clear distribution plan what ultimately affects if you're getting a lot of responses, if you're targeting the right audience, things like that. So focusing on the distribution plan even more would definitely be a focus.
Do we have any other questions from the peanut gallery?
I had a question. I was just curious which survey was your favorite one to work on?
I like the Bonded by Ball. It's kind of neck and neck with day 1 though. I really love those 2.
My personal favorite was day 1. I think just being able to access and navigate through the day 1 football page on Instagram. But also it kind of felt like if there was a page for baseball, day 1, I feel like I would definitely be interested in a page like that, as the amateur players. So seeing how day 1 football and learning about what the followers want was really cool.
And you and Taylor have to keep following us forever now. So don't even try to unsubscribe.
But I think their favorite survey was the volleyball one, their top one.
That goes unsaid.
I have a question from Ron Chase he's a Dream Team member of the Winning Edge Leadership Academy. He wanted to know, were there any general learnings, takeaways that you will apply as you enter and grow in your careers?
Yes, everything from day one, week one was a takeaway. Just how to take criticism in a way, how to apply criticism is a big thing that I learned, you know, and to keep sending your drafts, to send, okay, I made this change, what about this? Oh, there's another change to make, what about this? And not being, you know, offended by that. I think that was something that I learned. And then also working with 5 people, like 4 other people, and being able to communicate with 4 other people. Like literally, Daniel and I texted every day. Like it'll be like 11 p.m., 1 a.m. like, oops, late text, like just thinking about this, like Daniel. And it was great that somebody was always thinking and somebody was always trying to make it better. That really encourages me to take that same energy into anything that I do in the future.
I ditto everything Taylor said. Another thing for me was kind of cliche, but having an open mindset. Coming into this project, I've never really had a ton of marketing background. I've had undergrad in management consulting, which is more like leadership and working with people, and now doing business analytics. It's a lot of data. So I felt like marketing was an opportunity to bridge those tools that I've had from school. There was a lot of new challenges, but I think the biggest thing that I'll take away is having an open mindset and just putting in the work diligently, because this project, there wasn't like 1 week where we did nothing for 1 week and the next week was all out. It was consistent work day in and day out. And I think that's a main thing that I'll take away from this project.
I love that. I want to bring your mentors on, Marie and Joe, to say a few words. Let's make sure. Booyah. Hey, y'all.
Hey, guys. Well, first of all, oh, did I cut somebody off? Did I cut you off?
No, I said Blake is invited too. There he is.
Yeah. I always forget that you guys had to do the most to have 3. I always forget that.
Yes. Well, I can go first. First of all, Taylor and Daniel, you guys did an amazing job. You should be extremely proud of yourselves. It was such a joy to work with you guys. I think our group is pretty nonchalant, but we like to get the work done, and you guys fit into that really well. You could tell right away that you guys were extremely passionate what you were doing. You both communicated really well, never missed a deadline. And I think the greatest thing is that you challenged us. You made us think about our own assumptions and how we thought about the sport, or we thought about our athletes. And that was something that was extremely crucial and beneficial in our next steps in the way that we move forward. You know, these surveys and the questions that you asked are conversations that we're having every day internally in team sports with different departments. So to see those questions and those results happen is something that is going to benefit us in the future in the way that we move forward. You know, seeing that the NFL and our day one football were tied just shows that there's, you know, that strategy and grassroots is working, and that helps me as a product line manager to kind of focus my product with the youth. And I'm just extremely excited for your guys' future to see what you guys do. I will be watching, and I'm here for you if you need us. You know, we're all here for you, and can't wait to see what you guys do next.
Thanks, Marie.
I want to echo everything that Marie said, and great job as well, Daniel and Taylor. I've been very impressed with you throughout this entire process. You guys are obviously very smart and charismatic and very fun to work with. I think you guys responded to feedback very well, had a great attitude every meeting. And I know that survey was a lot, or that presentation was a lot of information to digest, but it was very clear that you knew everything you presented on. And I know just from going through it myself that there's a lot of really valuable information in there for our teams to dig through. So I want to thank you guys for all your hard work. From my own perspective, I feel like you know, I'm learning new things every day too. So you guys responded really well to feedback. It was a hoot. So I'm really grateful for this experience as well, and excited. So thanks, guys.
Did
Thanks,
you
Joe.
say it was the hoop?
Yeah, it was a hoot and a holler.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, Joe's a weirdo if you guys didn't know that already. So congrats to Taylor and Daniel. Great job on the survey. Great job on the project overall. The one thing I can say about you both is that you're here to work and you're like all business, like right at the start. I think we had to make you comfortable a little bit. So yeah, the joking around and the lightheartedness, hopefully that helped in the long run. But you guys, you showed up. You weren't messing around. You're ready to get down to it every single day and every meeting that we had. So I appreciate your attentiveness to everything that we were doing, and I'm thankful that you guys got some benefit out of it, because we did as well, like Marie and Joe said. So thank you so much for being dedicated to the project, and not just using it as something to put on your resume, but actually trying to get a true value out of the internship. So thank you for that. And I would say what I learned is that as much as we put emphasis into marketing across the different touch points that we have, it's always interesting to see survey data, and the process that you guys went through to get to the questions and to distribute and to gather the insights afterwards. It's always refreshing to see that. So very interesting, and just a pleasure to see you go through the journey, because there's no right or wrong way to get to the consumer. A lot of the time, there are sometimes, but a lot of the time there's various ways to do it. So I think what you guys went through getting to that process and following through with the project, I think really showed again your dedication and your desire to learn through the process. So thank you again, and look forward to keeping in touch. Obviously, we're here to help for the future. Use us as a resource. I know we need to get you a little bit more feedback on your resumes as well. So we'll still be in touch in the short term, but definitely looking forward to seeing what you guys do in the future. So thank you.
Thank you all. Before y'all go, we gotta do the picture, get your camera together, get your lighting, get some water, do all these things, and we'll do it in one. You got it? You good? All right. On 1, 2, 3. Bango. Awesome. Thank you, Taylor and Daniel. You all did a fantastic job. I will also be in touch. Stick around, hang out for the next presentation. We are getting close to the end. We have our final presentation of our Gigs for Game Changers Wilson corporate partnership. And it's a long name, but it's gonna be some great information, understanding and forming a point of view on the new NCAA name, image, and likeness rules, our favorite topic in sports business today. And Malani Lee from South Florida and Cravont Charleston from NC State will be talking about that. I'm looking forward to hearing this conversation. I think everybody on the call will be excited to hear what you all have to say. So Malani and Cravont, if you wanna come on, I will stop talking and give you the reins.
Dream team, here we go. Dream team.
All righty.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Malani Lee. I recently graduated from the University of South Florida, where I played soccer for 4 years, and now I am doing this internship and just trying to find my next steps in the sports and entertainment world.
My name is Cravont Charleston. I'm a senior at NC State. I am a track and field athlete, especially in the 100, 200. And I'm also just trying to finish school and doing the internship. And today we are talking about name, image, and likeness regarding the NCAA and NAIA. And so simply the name, image, and likeness are 3 elements that make up a legal concept known as the right of publicity, which involve those situations where permission is required of a person to use their name, image, or likeness. So for athlete, that's like autographs, getting someone to show up for special events, or having a school or a team use your name, image, and likeness for jersey sales, bobbleheads, or etc.
So this is just our agenda for the presentation. We're going to talk about name, image, and likeness, the different research that we found on the topics, and then the key dates that we found that align with what is going on currently in the name, image, and likeness, and athletes being able to hopefully start getting compensated in college for their name. And next, we're going to talk about the different NCAA football athletes. Throughout the course of our internship, we found 20 different athletes throughout the NCAA for volleyball, football, and basketball. And then as well, we found 2 for NAIA for each sport. Next, we will talk about athlete and brand approach, and then basketball athletes. Then followed by that, we'll talk about athletes using their voice throughout gender equality, social justice, and what's going on being a student athlete today. And then we'll talk about NCAA volleyball athletes as well.
So first up, we have current rules and prohibitions by the NCAA. Currently, NCAA Division I student athletes cannot promote or endorse a commercial product or service, even if they are paid to participate in the activity. Athletes are not able to use their image to continue participating in athlete-related promotional activities if they are initiated before college enrollment. However, the NAIA has become the first collegiate sport organization to pass name, image, and likeness rules. The following topics are legislation that have been passed regarding the legalization of athlete benefiting from the NLI. So first, we have the Fair Pay to Play Act. It's a California rule that prohibits the NCAA from penalizing athletes who choose to benefit from the NIL. This rule will already been passed, but it's not effective till 2023. However, the Intercollegiate Athletic Compensation and Rights bill was passed in Florida, and it produces the same qualities. However, it will be effective July 1st of 2021. This prompted the NCAA to act on the issue. While at the NCAA convention held in January, each division was expected to consider the name, image, and likeness rules and vote on the issue. However, it was postponed due to antitrust violations, so the committee did not vote on the issue. Therefore, we're gonna have a nationwide NCAA rule for NIL. Also, Congress has proposed a bill called the Amateur Athlete Protection and Compensation, where athletes can benefit from NIL along with other athletes' rights and protection laws. It passed a bill will establish a nationwide set of rules related to NIL and will also preempt any state or local law.
Next, we are going to talk about different football athletes. We picked 3 main football athletes to highlight. Here you see the list of the 20 NCAA football athletes, which were predominantly the top 20 players in the country that also had the biggest followings. And then from there, we picked 3 different football athletes to represent. One of them was actually one of our own, Clifford Taylor. He has a big TikTok and social media following. So he was great to highlight and learn some more information about. So first up, we have Derek Stingley Jr. He plays at Louisiana State University. He's a sophomore and All-American 2020 national champion when Joe Burrow led them. And we picked him because of his huge social media following and engagement on Instagram. He has 125K followers on Instagram. He's always interacting with his fans, and he was a big supporter and obviously still is supporting the social justice movement and everything that's going on today. And up next, we had Spencer Rattler. He plays at Oklahoma. He is a redshirt freshman. He was named the CBS National Freshman of the Year for 2020, as well as the academic All Big 12 First Team honoree for 2020. He has 371K followers on Instagram, which made him an easy choice for us to spotlight with his social media presence. And lastly, we had Tyson Kuma. He plays in the NAIA. He is currently a senior, and he was an All-American, and he was the GPAC Offensive Player of the Year as well.
So up next, we have how to approach NCAA athletes for brand. And we interviewed a number of athletes and asked them how they would like to be approached by brands. The most common method was a direct message on social media platforms such as Twitter or Instagram. However, each athlete said they would like to see a more personal and official approach. such as formal letter, because social media brings away the value of opportunity, planning out proposal, a letter saying how and what they will be compensated, including the benefits that come with it, and basic introduction of the brand and why they are attracted to the athlete, and what the partnership will consist of on a weekly basis.
So next we talk about the brand. And so when we were asking these athletes throughout interviews, I was lucky enough to have a couple of friends that took the time to do interviews with me. And their biggest things again were loyalty. So will the brand remain loyal throughout my support? Let's say the athlete goes through an injury and maybe they're slow to start back up on their feet once the injury occurs. So how is the brand going to stay loyal to me when I'm in my time of need? And how will the brand support me, whether that's financially or on social media? How is the brand going to be a benefit to me instead of me just being a benefit to them?
It's a very important topic. As a track athlete, we all know Allyson Felix, the most decorated woman Olympian in the history of track and field. However, when she became pregnant, I want to say about a company, but Nike cut her off, saying she cannot earn maternity leave while she was pregnant. So while she was pregnant and throughout the time where she would take care of her baby, she would not compensate for her work or any kind of promotional deal that she had. And also we have another one called Wallace Spearman, who gave Nike the best, I want to say 10 years. And when time to renew his contract, they pulled away, reduced the contract deal, saying he didn't live up to the standards, which was weird because he got top 3 in each Olympic that he went to. However, they reduced his contract from, I believe, $200,000 to $50,000 a year. And so loyalty and support is really big for athletes. And we also asked each athlete about the perspective. We asked them, what does the brand want from me? And they also asked, how will the brand help my career grow? Will the brand stifle my creativity or express my expressive side? Or will they support me in my freedom of expression? What will represent the brand involve? What are the culture of the brand and what are the core values of the brand? Do they coincide with my own? And is this brand the right fit for me? Will the brand be a good fit for me throughout my career? Not just for right now, but we like to see athletes have a successful career in the long term, such as LeBron, Allyson Felix, even though she had the Nike scandal.
Next, we're going to talk about basketball athletes, and it's the same platform as we used for the football. We selected 20 NCAA basketball athletes amongst the Power 5 conferences in the NCAA, and then we also selected 2 NAIA athletes, and we lowered it down to our top 3 athletes to showcase to you all today. So first up, we have Scotty Pippen Jr. He's well known from his dad, but he is slowly but surely creating his own way and has a strong following and a strong platform for himself. He is a sophomore at Vanderbilt University. He was the SEC All-Freshman team in 2020, as well as the All-SEC First Team in 2021. Following him is Scotty Barnes, who has 157K followers on Instagram. He is a freshman at Florida State University. He was ACC Freshman of the Year, as well as ACC Sixth Man of the Year, both recorded in 2021. And then lastly, from the NAIA, we have Markell Turner. He has 2.3K followers on Instagram. He's a sophomore at Union College. He was Appalachian Athletic Conference All-Freshman Team, as well as the AAC Tournament MVP of 2020.
Athletes using their voice. When researching our social media platform, we looked at Nike, Adidas, and different colleges, and also athletes as well. And we started using voices through different methods, such as IGTV, podcast with other fellow athletes, IG live session, and also using IG stories and Instagram stories. Twitter stories such as tweets, and in-house athlete-led conferences hosted by SAAC. And most of the athletes really have a touch on the issue of peaceful protest and social injustice.
So next, we still are talking about athletes using their voice. And so first up, we have Sedona Price. She plays basketball at the University of Oregon. and she a lot of people got to know her by her posting at March Madness, where she was displaying the difference in food between what the women's basketball players were getting at the NCAA tournament versus men. And then she went on to show the weight room, how the men's NCAA tournament had a full weight room and they just had a bench of weights. And then lastly, she went on to show the goodie bags, the difference in the compensation that the females were getting versus the males were getting. And next up, we have Infinite Tucker. He runs track and field at Texas A&M, and he was just talking about the difference in social equality, social justice, and what is really going on today in America. And then lastly, we have Isaiah Livers. He plays basketball at University of Michigan, and Cravont will talk about what he went over for this part.
Of course. So one thing that is relevant to our topic is the not NCAA property movement. The 3 Big Ten player Isaiah Livers that you said in the picture we see right here wearing the not NCAA property shirt, he wore it to the NCAA basketball tournament. We also have Geo Baker of Rutgers and Jordan Bohannon of Iowa. They were the athletes pushing for NCAA reforms with the hashtag not NCAA property. And the movement is urging NCAA to allow athletes to benefit from the NIL. Geo Baker actually tweeted an awesome point saying someone on music scholarship can profit from an album. Someone on academic scholarship can have a tutor service, but athletes are not allowed to benefit from the athletic scholarship while they are in college.
And then next we will talk about volleyball. So it's similar to basketball and football, but for volleyball, we did beach volleyball as well as indoor volleyball. And so first up, we are going to highlight NCAA beach volleyball players. And so first up, we have Mac May. She has 17.9K followers on Instagram. She is a senior at University of California, Los Angeles. She was recently named the Pac-12 Conference Player of the Year. And in 2019, she was ranked 9th in the nation for points. So her accolades paired with her social media following on Instagram really made her an interest to us to showcase her for you guys. And next we have Haley Harward. She has 7.3K followers on Instagram. She is a junior at University of Southern California. She was a 2-time Big West All-Conference Tween in 2017 and 2018, and also a 4 times Defensive Player of the Week throughout 2020. And lastly, we have Jaden Whitmarsh. She is a sophomore at University of California, Los Angeles. She has 15.9K followers on Instagram. And throughout the 2020 season, she was one of 4 student athletes on the beach volleyball team to go undefeated the entire year.
Next, we have indoor volleyball. And we have Lexi Sun, who has 69.1K followers on Instagram. She's a senior at Nebraska, all Big Ten first team in 2019, Madison Regional All Tournament team in 2019. Next, we have Brooke Noonveller, 20.9K followers on Instagram. She's a junior at Oregon. She was the AVCA Pacific North Region Freshman of the Year in 2019, and also a libero volleyball junior national for the USA Championship team. Sophia Salak, 1.1K followers on Instagram. She's a sophomore at Oklahoma City University. She was an NAIA Scholar Athlete and Conference Scholar Athlete, and she was also All-American.
And then next, we are just going to showcase Wilson's social media. Obviously, a big part of our project was talking about the social media of Wilson and how we could better help them with different influencers or ambassadors that we hope to have represent them in the future. And so first up is Wilson's basketball page, followed by Wilson's football page, then Wilson's volleyball page, and lastly, Wilson's overall sporting goods page. And we just tried to follow a similar format of what we saw on these different social media platforms, and how the athletes that we selected for each individual sport would then be good representations of these social media platforms to further use in the future for any college partnerships that Wilson might pair with.
So we like to thank our mentors, Derek and Eli. Eli not here with us today. Thank you for all your feedback, gave us, working with us, and being patient with us throughout the whole process. And thank you for winning Edge and Wilson for the great opportunity we had.
All right, do we have any questions from the audience? NIL, hot topic, we gotta have some questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Oh.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kay. I've been seen in on all of these. I'm the HR business partner here at Wilson, supporting team sports. So one of the questions, great presentation, by the way. So that one of the topics that you brought up that caught my attention was, you mentioned an athlete that was pregnant, and then basically her sponsorship was, I think you said, removed because she was pregnant. When was this, and what was the outcome? Because I know that Nike recently had a whole, I'm not sure if you saw in their Instagram stories for Women's Month, they had you know, basically female athletes that were pregnant, and it was a range of different sports. So was that a result of what happened with this athlete?
Yes, this situation actually prompted that video you saw. I saw it too, and it's weird because the athlete actually commented on and said it should have been done earlier, which it should have been. But I believe this happened in 2018. She was pregnant in 2017 through 2018, so that was all that happened. And so then she came back out and she left Nike and with Athleta. The brand was seeing all these stores with that big on women athletic wear. She left Nike and went with them, and I believe she continued with Athleta as well. But yeah, that situation prompted Nike to change their views and their policy on maternity leave. That's why they highlight athletes now being pregnant on the video.
Interesting. Thank you.
Have any other questions? Oh, we have a question from Ron. Do you have any recommendations on what a player partnership could look like?
So when we interviewed a variety of athletes throughout all the different sports that we covered, and when we were talking to them, they just said they want to work with a brand that matches them. So it doesn't really matter, at least the athletes that I talked to and that Cravont and I discussed, it didn't really matter if it was Nike, Adidas, or Wilson. At the end of the day, they want to be with somebody that's going to help them on the field and off the field and help uplift their platform. And they don't want it to just be a give and take. They want to be in an equal partnership. So whether that means that they're wearing Nike Wilson shoes, or they're wearing a Wilson headband, or they're wearing a Wilson sweatband to practice, and then they're just, having a different teammate or the videographer, photographer, whoever is there and able to take the picture to then use and post on their social media platform. At the end of the day, they are willing to do whatever it is to help them exceed, but they want to make sure that they're not in a relationship that's just give and where they're not getting anything out of it and they're not going to be supported.
I also had some questions during our meetings. I asked Derek and Eli how would it look for an athlete who is sponsored by Nike, who go to Nike school, be sponsored by Adidas. And so basically we just came up with the idea that if we just highlight athletes in a personal time apart from the team, when they practice myself, or how athletes always try to gain extra work alone, to highlight Wilson. Then like have, say Trevor Lawrence was we got Trevor Lawrence, have him go to Clemson football field throw a quick ball, but have them promote Wilson. Like say the only ball I throw in my own time is Wilson. So just kind of individual promotional activities.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Oh, here we go, Kevin.
I don't have questions. That one is just a super interesting topic. And it's amazing the number. You talk to some probably people that are institutionalized a little bit in terms of in the system. You know, there's as many opportunities and potentially issues that can come from that. It's just amazing. I do think, you know, the situation needs to change. There shouldn't be a reason people can't, you know, benefit from having an audience and from their own brand. So it's a fascinating black hole of change, I guess is the best way to put it. So no question, just a comment.
We welcome comments too. Derek, you had a question for your team here?
Oh, no questions. I thought I was just gonna just hopped on just to they did a great job, and we definitely learned a lot from everything they showed, and yeah, it's really I'm excited for them. That was really great to see the progression over the weeks for sure.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any other question? Mary, did you know that you could come on screen and ask a question unless you're driving, getting Starbucks, making people smile?
You might be catching me at that time of day, Kareem. But hi guys, great presentation. I was just wondering specifically, y'all mentioned at the beginning about your graduation timelines and what you hope to do in the future. What are you guys looking to do specifically?
So I'll go first. So this project was very interesting to me because it pertains to what I'm trying to go through right now. As of right now, I am in the works for a professional athletic career for track. And so researching, not only for in college, just researching ideas, like how I want to be marketable, how I want to get marketed, and asking questions to agents, like what should I do, what should I ask? This project kind of grounded me and gave me more experience. As far as professionally, other than that, sky's the limit, I guess.
And for me, I've always been really interested, being a former student athlete myself, and how we can best help the athlete post-college excel, whether that be, it was really fun for me getting to do volleyball, both beach and indoor volleyball. That whole week I was so excited, and I was bothering Derek and Eli because I was like, I just heard this and I just heard this. A few of my best friends play volleyball at University of Arizona. So getting able to touch into the side of women's sports, which isn't really something I've done before, and just letting us learn more about women's sports and all that they do, and like the limitation of resources, even though I was a student athlete, just seeing it from a different platform and on a different level, like at the University of Arizona or the University of Nebraska, and how they're playing volleyball and like the differences in the circumstances that they're going through versus like their football team. I really enjoyed that. So I mean, I'm really open for anything, but I would love to like help be a part of like supporting future female athletes and like those that are to come after me, and just helping them have more opportunities and different experiences than I did when I was a student athlete.
I just have a quick question. So you said some of the people would prefer getting asked over social media. And I know that like already there's a lot of like random scammy DMs. Do you ever think that that'll be an issue in the future? And I know you guys probably don't have all the answers, but like, what are some ways you think that Wilson could kind of protect that or make it more valid?
So actually, some of the athletes that we interviewed, they specifically said what you said. And they said the first thing they're going to do, and like that they do, especially if it's like Scotty Pippen Jr., who has such a huge following, is they go and look at the account that sent them the DM and they make sure like it's verified, and they make sure that the person who's reaching out to them is actually either working for or doing a fellowship or an internship with Wilson, and they're not just like, reaching out because they want the name and the face to know that like they just talked to Scotty Pippen Jr. So they said that they're making sure that they're like, we are actually verified before they even think about responding to us.
Great. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Feedback, comments, anything?
I'd just like to say, I know, I can't remember, I think it was Blake that offered, and I know I work in HR and some of you guys want to stay in the athletic field, but if you guys, or when you guys graduate, please find me on LinkedIn. If there's any way I can help you guys with your resumes, I'm here to help.
Thank you for that. I do want to provide some feedback, and I was like blowing you up, Cravont, on your chat and your phone, but like relax, slow down a little bit when you're presenting. You want people to see and hear the confidence that you have when you're presenting the information. You've done the work, you've done the research. Don't just blast through it. Like we want you to feel like we want you to know that we are here because we know you've done the work. So when you're thinking about presenting, just think of, even if you have to like say it in your head first, just slow down a little bit, relax, and go through the presentation. That's my biggest feedback. And for Malani, just like, again, the information, don't feel like you have to read it verbatim script, some notes that you have, like you've been doing this for 6 weeks. Feel confident with how you're sharing the information. Does anybody else have any comments, feedback, questions before we take our, Derek, did you already say your piece about your group?
Oh, I don't know. How much time do we have? I don't know. We could be here for a while.
No, I love that. I put it until 3:15, so people need to hop out before then. That's on you.
Yeah, no, I can just run down. I mean, first, of course, with Eli unfortunately not being able to make it, I know just the conversations I've had with him off to the side, like I think I could speak for both of us when we say we're just, so proud of the work that both Malani and Vaughn did and put in, and their time and energy and effort, because I know there was a lot of, there's a lot on their plate. So them taking the time and just really committing to it. And each week really just, you're seeing the progression. And I thought we had a lot of great meetings and opportunities to really connect and get to learn more about them as individuals, but then also understanding their background and, them providing a lot of insight for us that we weren't as familiar with, and that they might be closer to having, being a student athlete and having those relationships. So I thought that was just really helpful, and a lot of key learnings and takeaways. And again, where I talked about the first presentation, the first group that presented, like going through information and helping us on like a social and digital side. And this is another example of really helping with what my day-to-day looks like, what Eli does, and what we all kind of do. And this is, a huge tool for us. So really appreciate the work, and excited for their futures and everything that go. And they know we got their backs for life. And I know we went over the resumes. Eli really took the lead with that one. I think the resumes are probably coming along very well. And you guys both look swagged out too. Vaughn, man, I see you, man. I see you. You guys can. So yeah, it's
they're used to wearing track suits and the swishy swish suits all the time. So
that's all I wear every day.
Every day. Yeah. Kevin, if you don't, I'm gonna pause you for a second. Then I'm gonna bring you and Amanda back. But I want to take this group photo with Derek, Cravont, and Malani, and then I'll bring you back with Amanda to say a few words to wrap up. If you have any other questions or any feedback or anything, please feel free to jump on. But on the count of 3, we will take a picture of this group here. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. All right. Thank you again, Malani and Cravont and Derek. Awesome being a mentor. If I could have Amanda and Kevin come back on the stage. I may have to bring Kevin on because I like canceled him, but let's not canceled.
You have to bring me back to it, looks like.
Okay, I didn't cancel anybody, but ask to start video and Amanda. Start video. Boom, boom. All right. And for those who don't know, Amanda has been our fearless leader from the Wilson side with the last 6 weeks and prior to that and getting this started. And I wanted to give her and Kevin the opportunity to say whatever. The microphone, the platform is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Green. I will say this was another fabulous day and rounds of presentations. I know you guys had some really heady topics, some tough topics to kind of dig into and chew on and present out. And I thought all of the presentations were very well done. I'll echo what Kevin said earlier about it was clear that there was a lot of prep and work that went into them. So thank you for that. Overall, I will say that I think I speak for our entire crew that this has been a really uplifting, wonderful project to work on and around. It's still a challenging year for everybody with the pandemic. And so I think this has been one of those really wonderful bright spots. And I think that was a function of all the great people that we've worked with, all of our own mentors kind of stepping up and really embracing just getting to do some good. And actually, Corrine and I are meeting tomorrow to talk about round 2. So I think that's probably the biggest testament to how much we loved our first experience and run through with you guys. So congrats to everybody. Excellent job. Thank you for the support, for the attention. And I'll turn it over to Kevin to take us home.
Thank you. Hopefully I'm on. And just check. Yes. Okay. Really, it has been a wonderful experience for us too. Frankly, it's been a very bright spot in a, shall we say, cloudy year, maybe even dark year with all the issues going on and things that are coming to head. And as a Wilson team, we made a commitment to ourselves and each other that we're going to do some tangible things that make a difference, not just raise your hand and talk about what's wrong, but how do we do things, overtly and directly that can impact people's lives. And what's been amazing to me is if you can open your minds and your ears and your hearts to understand a situation and look at opportunities that come, you never know where they're going to come from. This particular partnership came from one guy who's always looking to help and find different connections in the world. And, so JD has a conversation with Corrine that leads to this partnership. It's a great thing. And so the learning for people, even the guys and girls on the program, is you never know where the next opportunity is going to come from. And you got to build relationships. And, there's something to be said for wanting to do the right thing and to helping each other out. So it's been a really, really great experience for us. And the team, and like Amanda said, we're pumped about what the next steps are, and we want to find ways we can help going forward because the interaction with the quality of the candidates has just been off the charts, and it's eye-opening to learn what we can do if we really engage and take the effort beyond making statements and actually doing things.
I want to make sure that you all understand, and maybe you can provide some insight, but not only did these 10 game changers work with their mentors on these 5 projects over the last 6 weeks, but they each got a chance to spend time with each of you individually. And I thought that was important and crucial in this experience, because it could have easily just been like, this is your team, this is who you're working with, good luck, we'll see you on the other side. But what Amanda reached out and said, hey, I want to have these conversations, and Kevin is going to do it because I told him to. And that to me speaks volumes of your leadership. And I would love to hear your insights and kind of what you learned maybe from those individual conversations.
I think for me, there's some universal themes, right? When you talk to a group of folks who are, 20 years behind you or so in life, and just trying to figure it out. I found those to be the most energizing conversations I've had in months, and hopefully I provided, whether it's some guidance, my own experience where I went wrong, or maybe where I took the right turns. So I guess number one, I was just struck by the questions were very well thought out. Everybody was super prepared. Everyone was so easy to talk to. And I'll say that they probably affected me as positively as I'm hoping I could have helped them. So I don't know that I'm being super clear, but I would just say that I felt fortunate to have the time. So thank you to everybody who I chatted with. And I truly mean when I said, reach out if you ever need anything. That's the part of the job that's rewarding.
Thank you for that. Kevin, by the way, Kevin, I'm like vibing with these headphones right now.
I was doing a lot of multitasking earlier. You should have seen me. It was impressive. So I had to throw the headphones on so I could move around a little bit. Yeah, for me, the one-on-ones were awesome because I guess on one level, it makes you remember and realize that we all have the same insecurities and worries about entering the job market and wondering, am I good enough? Am I going to be accepted? Do I have the right credentials? Am I, again, one of the guys said it earlier, I'm an analytics guy, but the marketing thing really opened my eyes. So if you see something you're passionate about, it doesn't have to 100% match your resume. I mean, I'm living proof. I don't have a sports resume to speak of, but I've been able to make a career in sport, and I'm passionate about our sports. And but I think what's really was refreshing about the discussions was being able to identify and validate those concerns in a way that hopefully makes everybody feel better going into that interview process or going into a situation where, it's the things you worry about are the things everybody worries about. They're great equalizers, and it's how you manage them. And chances are you're not going to get a job at your first interview, but you're going to learn something, you're going to make a connection, and it'll help you on the next one. And I'm a big believer, it sounds corny, but I'm a big believer in karma and being able to find a way to never burn a bridge and build relationships and chase what you want to do. And my team has heard this, and several of you on the calls have heard this. I think that if your head and your heart are in the right place, it's okay to be selfish, because you should go for what you want to do, knowing that you're going to deliver, for whoever hires you or for whatever career you choose. And you should always be looking forward to that next thing for yourself, whether it's in the company you're in or the next step you want to take. So it was a good reminder for me. And it was also a good reminder that, you're working hard for a reason, and put those insecurities away, and just remember everybody else has the same issues.
I am also a big believer in karma. I am the epitome of karmic vibes. I barter a lot. I don't pay for a lot of things. So, but I just want to appreciate, again, I can't even thank you all enough. And Amanda, to get an email about round 2 before round 1 is even complete speaks volumes to the work our game changers have been putting in the last 6 weeks, because I could charm the pants off of anybody, but at the end of the day, if our game changers aren't doing what they need to do, partnerships like these don't exist. So again, thank you. I can't wait to talk to you, Amanda. We're gonna people are going to be banging at the door. I'm like, oh no, we're good. Thanks though. Never will I say that. Let me take that back. I will always take opportunities, but I know that this is going to open the eyes to a lot of other organizations that want to do more than just make a statement and write a check, because you guys could have just wrote a check and we could have used it for our retreat. But you created opportunities instead. So I want to make sure, if you're still on, you spread the word, spread the love about Winning Edge, about this program. Let people know for the participants from the schools. I saw NC State is in the building. Tanya, I saw Notre Dame. James is in the building. If you're on, spread the word. We need other schools to know that we are here to enhance the student athlete experience on campus, but we need their help to share these opportunities with their student athletes. If you are a Winning Edge Dream Team member, we need more opportunities. Let them know, let people know. You just said on a presentation, it was awesome. Game changers, if you're on, let your teammates know, like, you over here about to graduate, you ain't got no job because you don't have no experience on your resume. You better hop on that Winning Edge train. We'll take them where they need to go. So I want to thank again everybody. This has been an easy lift for me, and I haven't been able to say that in a long time. And that just means the world to me, because I work hard to create these opportunities, and this came so easy. So thank you so much. And yeah, oh, game changers, I gotta take a group shot. Mentors, you're gonna get an email with a survey. Please complete that survey, because we need your feedback. Game changers, you'll get a survey as well. But if all the game changers could come back on, I'll take a group shot. I know we missed one, but he had class. If everybody could come back on, we're missing one more, and I'm gonna stop my video as well. Boom, and then, oh, maybe she's gone too. She probably had to leave. Taylor, are you still on? She had to leave. That's okay. I can Photoshop. I'm a Photoshop wizard. So on the count of 3, we'll take a picture. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Well, thank you again, everybody, for sticking with us. I said 3:15 in the calendar invite, and it's 3:10. So gang, gang, enjoy the rest of your Thursday and the rest of your week. And we game change. Continue to support us.